Good morning, Whitehead Wildcats. Buenos dias, Whitehead Wildcats. Today is Thursday, January 7th, and we're back for a full day of learning, right?
We are.
Thursday. Anyway, today is Literature Day, Reading Day. What do we call it?
Theater Thursday.
Theater. Well, it's not going to be a whole lot of theater today, but I'm going to be sharing a special book. It's called The Story of Ruby Bridges, and I wonder how many of you know about Ruby Bridges. Oh, Mrs. Randall does.
I sure do.
So this story sounds like it was so long ago, but it actually was about the time that I was born, a little after that, and I guess that was a long time ago. But it was in my lifetime that this happened, and that's what I find so startling. So Ruby Bridges, she was born in a really small cabin. The family was very poor, very, very poor, says the author, Robert Coles. They didn't have much to eat, and when she was 4, the family decided to move. So they moved to New Orleans.
Ooh.
Ruby's father became a janitor, and her mother took care of the children. They went to church every Sunday. Now the story really is much better. I just don't have time to read it all.
It's very long.
I'll pass it out to any teacher who wants to read it. At that time, though, 1957, that's when I was born, black children and white children went to separate schools in New Orleans. The black children were not able to receive the same education as the white children.
That's ridiculous.
It was. It wasn't fair, and it actually was against the nation's law. So our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, that would make for some interesting conversation. A judge ordered 4 black girls to go to 2 white elementary schools. 3 of the girls were sent to McDonough, and 6-year-old Ruby, 6 years old, Ruby was sent to 1st grade in William France Elementary School. So guess what happened that first day? There was an angry, angry mob of white people who screamed and shouted at this darling little 6-year-old Ruby as she was walked into her first day of school.
Can you imagine that, being 6 years old?
No.
6. You're just a little girl, and these grown people are screaming at you.
I can't imagine being 6.
Like you did something wrong.
And walking through the crowd while getting screamed at. How brave.
Right?
She must have been.
Because if I were 6 and that happened to me, I think I would turn around and cry and run home.
Yep, I think so. Or hide.
Right?
Hide behind my mom or somebody. So guess what, kiddos? Every day for weeks that turned into months, Ruby had that same kind of experience every morning as she walked into school. This just wasn't a day or two and it ended. Every single day, there were angry white people screaming and shouting at her. Well, they did one thing more. The white people would not send their children to school. So Ruby, being the only black girl in the school, sat in a classroom all by herself every single day because none of the white parents allowed their children to go to school.
I'm pretty impressed that her teacher showed up every day, though.
I am too.
Because you would think that the teacher would get pressure as well to
Oh,
not
she
come.
did. Wouldn't that be an interesting thing to investigate?
I think so. I would be interested to know what kind of backlash the teacher got. Because you don't ever hear about the teacher.
No. So imagine, kiddos, listen to what the author says. When Ruby got inside the building, she was all alone except for her teacher, Mrs. Henry. There were no other children to keep Ruby company, to play with, to learn with, to eat lunch with. But every day she walked into that school with a big smile on her face, ready to get down to the business of learning. Mrs. Henry said she was polite and she worked well. She enjoyed her time there. She didn't seem nervous or anxious or irritable or scared. She seemed as normal and relaxed as any child I've ever taught. And so Ruby began learning how to read and write in an empty classroom in an empty building.
That's crazy to me.
I think I showed that picture.
Yep.
And
to be so good-spirited.
With a smile on her face every day, and her teacher sat with her and taught her all through the year, all by herself in an empty school building.
She had some good parents raising her.
Yes, she did. Then one morning, something happened, Mrs. Randall.
Oh dear.
Mrs. Henry stood by a window in her classroom as she usually did, watching Ruby walk toward the school, and suddenly little Ruby stopped right in front of the mob of howling and screaming people. She stood there facing all these men and women, and she seemed to be talking to them. Would you at 6 years old want to face a mob of screaming adults?
No, and that teacher looks worried.
Oh my gosh, look at that mob of people. I know, boys and girls, it's kind of far away, but I hope your teachers want to read the story to you and show you the pictures.
Well, or even just go on Google and look up the images.
Yes, you could.
Oh.
Mrs. Henry saw Ruby's lips moving and wondered what Ruby could be saying. The crowd seemed ready to kill her. The marshals were frightened. They tried to persuade Ruby to move along. They tried to hurry her into the school, but Ruby wouldn't budge. Then Ruby stopped talking, and she walked into the school. I wonder what she was saying to them.
I don't know.
Well, Mrs. Henry asked her, Ruby, what did you do? And she said, I became irritated. I didn't stop and talk with them, she said. Mrs. Henry said, but Ruby, I saw you stop there, and I saw your lips moving. Ruby said, I was praying. I was praying for them. Every morning, Ruby had stopped a few blocks away from school to say a prayer for the people who hated her. This morning, she forgot until she was already in the middle of the angry mob.
Oh, goosebumpy.
It's a little girl, true to her word, true to her beliefs.
And always kind.
Always kind.
And that's like the epitome of always kind right there.
Yep.
Whew.
And so, boys and girls, later that year, 2 boys joined her at the elementary school. The whole school was empty except for little Ruby. And then 2 boys, 2 white parents sent their boys because they were sick and tired of their boys at home. They wanted them to go and learn. They were tired of their children getting cheated out of an education. So they said, it's time for us to fight for the side of the law and for our children's right to go to a school and get their education. Well, that's what Ruby was doing.
Right, that seems a little hypocritical.
It does. They did all get their education. And by the time Ruby was in the 2nd grade, the mobs had finally given up their struggle to scare her and defeat the judge's order. So year after year, she went to the France school and she graduated and went on to graduate from high school. She had 4 sons, boys and girls. And guess what? Mrs. Randall and I decided to Google her to see if she was still alive. And guess what? She is. She lives in New Orleans.
Yep.
And here is a picture of her. Isn't she beautiful?
She looks like a strong-willed woman.
She does. She does. And I wonder if we could write letters to her. I wonder if we could have her speak to us.
I don't know.
What a story she has to tell us. What a story of strength, determination. Her parents to send their little girl. What her parents must have gone through, knowing what their little girl would go through in trying to make a difference in the world and stand up for what's right. Boys and girls, Mrs. Randall and I want you to stand up for what's right.
Yep.
We want you to really strive to get an education. We want you to want everyone in the room to be focused on learning. You can go home and you can play later. But when you're in school, we want you to be the best you can be.
Well, and it was interesting and worth noting that even though she was going through something really bad, really hard, really tough, and people were being really mean to her, never once was she rude or disrespectful or mean. She could have yelled back. She could have called the crowd names.
She could have.
Never.
A lot of things, you know. And today I was in the kindergarten classroom and there was an incident with one child who was not being very nice. And I said to that little child, I said, your hands are only meant to do good things. Your hands are only meant to be kind. We don't use our hands to hurt, to make fun of, to bother people. We use our hands to do things good for our world and for our brains.
And that's what she did.
And that's what she did. What an example. Oh, I'd love to meet her.
Me too.
Okay.
That'd be good combo.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to feed you today. You are going to have Chef's Choice of chicken.
Oh, we're back to Chef's Choice.
I know, and that's hard to say.
Chef's
choice of chicken. Then you're going to have cheese or French bread pizza. But I feel like we just had that on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So, but you are going to have seasoned green beans and juice.
Good.
So there's that.
Green beans are good for you.
They are. I like them. With
All right.
cheese.
Birthdays?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got some birthdays.
All right.
We've got a few birthdays today. We have Angel Chaveste Garcia in 5th grade,
Woohoo.
Melody Montalvo Hernandez in 1st grade, and Nevaeh Richardson in 5th grade. Woo.
Yay.
That didn't come out very well.
Happy birthday,
Happy
kiddos.
birthday!
All right. Are we all ready?
I think so.
Okay, let's stand for the pledge.
Up you come.
You know, one teacher asked me today why we don't have a flag, so I'm going to try to find a flag for us. It's a good question.
Oh, you know, I think I do know where one is, but it's not the best looking.
Okay, no, I'm going to get just a little one. So we
that's
can-
a good
yeah.
idea.
Okay.
All
Now
right,
this time
up
you
you
should
come.
be up. All right, ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, it's really meaningful today.
It is.
I will be respectful.
I will be respectful.
I will be responsible.
I will be responsible.
I will be safe.
I will be safe.
I will be kind.
I will be kind. And I will do my best today for...
This day will come no more.
Nope.
Make it a great one, kiddos.
Bye!
Bye.